destiny is bound up with mine, and with the fate of Tamriel itself.
Hi, Ramnexus here. Oblivion Remastered has arrived, and it looks awesome. Better than most of us expected, I think, and better than most remasters ever. In this video, we'll take a look at the game's graphics and performance on consoles. A couple of months before the remaster arrived, I made a video sharing my wish list of all the improvements I was hoping to see in the game. So today, we'll count down the 10 graphic improvements I was hoping for and see how many have been granted by those genies over at Bethesda and Virtuous. We'll examine the graphical improvements and measure the smoothness, or not, to be found on the Xbox Series S, Series X, PlayStation 5, and the beefy PlayStation 5 Pro. PC Ultra settings screenshots will be included as a comparison, and for a bit of nostalgia, we'll have some side-by-side shots with the original Oblivion to really highlight the difference. Sound like a plan? Okay, let us commence. Number 1. A 120Hz mode. The first of my wishes was for a 120Hz mode on consoles, which would then make a 40 FPS graphics setting possible.
Oh, hell no!
A 40 FPS graphic mode, which is sometimes called a balanced mode, is a feature I was really keen on. It's becoming more common, as it often provides high visual quality similar to what we see in a 30 FPS quality mode, but at a smoother frame rate. Fallout 4 now has a 40 FPS balanced mode thanks to its next-gen update. Hogwarts Legacy, Star Wars Outlaws, and Avowed all do so as well, just to name a few. The sad news is there's no 120Hz mode in Oblivion Remastered on consoles, and so no 40 FPS balanced graphics setting. Damn it. But while it is missing at launch, it's worth noting that some games like Avatar and even Bethesda's own Starfield did introduce a 40 FPS mode in patches after launch, so there's still a chance we'll sit here, fingers crossed. But as it stands, wish not granted. Number 2. Multiple graphics modes. One thing I wished for in that wishlist video was the inclusion of multiple graphics modes in the console releases. This was a safe bet, I guess, as most games do this nowadays, and yep, sure enough, Oblivion Remastered has both performance and quality graphics modes in 3 of the 4 next-gen consoles, with only the Series S version having a single graphics mode. So, wish was 3/4 granted, which is, yeah, that's good enough. Wish granted, no worries. I'll go into a bit more detail later about how these modes change the graphics and the performance of the game. Number 3. A PlayStation release. This is a quick one. Bethesda is now owned by Microsoft, yeah, which means Xbox is the home of Oblivion. But in my wishlist video, I was hoping for Oblivion Remastered to come out on PlayStation as well. The original Oblivion has not received any improvements or re-releases on PlayStation since it first came out on the PlayStation 3 in 2006. So I'm happy to see that, yeah, Oblivion Remastered has been released on PlayStation 5. What's more, it is listed as a PS5 Pro enhanced game, so it takes advantage of some of the more powerful hardware on the PS5 Pro, though it does seem the enhancement really is just limited to a higher base resolution. Release on PlayStation is not a big surprise. Xbox has been publishing more of its developers' games on PlayStation lately, and they've been well received. Think Indiana Jones, Forza Horizon 5, and Doom Dark Ages. So it makes sense they would continue this trend with Oblivion Remastered. It's great to see. More choice for more people, I say. So, wish granted. If you're enjoying this video, could I ask you to give it a like? That'd be great. I make videos on technical aspects of some of my favourite games, so feel free to check out my channel and subscribe if you like what you see. Okay, thanks. Number 4. Native High Dynamic Range. Does Oblivion Remastered have native high dynamic range support? No, it does not. Which is a shame. With the game now looking as good as it does, high dynamic range may have just made those final details pop. Forcing HDR using the console's own settings or forcing it in Windows does improve the visual quality on my HDR monitor. And I see no obvious graphics issues like washed out or greyed out visuals. Unfortunately, of course, it's not something I can actually show on an SDR YouTube video. Anyway, if the game was to have its own dedicated high dynamic range support, it would likely look even better. Using Starfield as an example, that game didn't release with native HDR support, but it does have it now, so here's hoping for HDR to be patched into Oblivion Remastered in the future. But at the moment, I have to say, wish not granted. Number 5. Resolution. I said the following in my wishlist video. What I'd be disappointed with is if we get a game with a native render of just 720p upscaled to 4K using FSR2. That scenario has a history of generating games that don't look so hot, and I think an Oblivion remake deserves better treatment than that. It seems wish granted for this one, but maybe only just. Neither Sony nor Bethesda have said what upscaling method Oblivion Remastered uses on consoles. Since this is an Unreal Engine 5 game, I think it's likely using UE5's own temporal super resolution to upscale to 4K. As for the PS5 Pro, it has hardware in it that supports its own upscaling solution, known as PSSR. But normally, if a game is using that, Sony makes mention of it somewhere and I haven't seen that. So what resolution is the game running at? Well, this varies by console and by graphics mode, and there's also dynamic resolution scaling at play, so it's not an easy question to answer. It requires pixel counting, which does take some skill. So, for the native render resolution numbers, I'm going to rely on the analysis from Digital Foundry's expert, Tom Morgan. Tom found Series X in performance mode typically aim for 1440p, but dynamic resolution was in use, so it often went down to 990p. In quality mode, Series X hit 1620p, but could go down to 1296p. The low-spec Series S targeted 900p but dipped down to 810p at times, which is not far above that 720p limit. For comparison, original Oblivion on the 360 ran at 600p, and the enhanced version of the original game got up to 1800p on the One X at Series X. Here's a screenshot of PC at max settings with deep learning anti-aliasing in place, but no upscaling or frame generation enabled. The PlayStation 5 ran at up to 1440p in performance mode, but dipped down to 900p. In quality mode, the PS5 ran the same as the Series X, hitting 1620p and getting down to 1296p. Finally, the PS5 Pro, it hit 1620p in performance mode, but dropped down to 1188p at times. And in quality mode, almost ran at a native 4K at times, with a resolution up to 1216p at its best, but getting down to 1584p. 2x zoom highlights the low res of the original game, doesn't it? But it also shows the improvements made by the enhanced original. Here's a summary table of resolutions. So my wish was granted. The absolute lowest resolution was 810p on the Series S, with upscaling using something superior to FSR2, likely Unreal Engine's TSR, which is all good news, so wish granted. Number 6. Enhanced textures. Every single object and texture in the game has been remade for the remaster, according to Bethesda, and it shows. The shield, which was a bit of an eyesore in the original game, has not just been retextured, but it's actually been turned into a 3D object with that bas-relief detail on the shield's face that we could only dream of in 2006. Close-in details look the same on both consoles in all graphics modes, but distant objects and textures can be superior in quality mode. And we've got some screenshots here to try and show differences. Comparison shots are hard to make in this game since the weather is random and can't be controlled on consoles. Also, most indoor locations are lit by torches or campfires which give off a nice flickering effect, but that means the brightness of each screenshot is a bit different. A side note on field of view, screenshots of the original game have a wider field of view than the remaster. To set the field of view in the remaster to match the original Oblivion, set it to 90 degrees in the menu. That's how I normally play. One reason the game looks so great now is that all textures are new and are of high quality. So, wish granted. Number 7. 60 FPS minimum on consoles. I expected a minimum 60 FPS on consoles, so wish not granted. All consoles have 30 FPS modes, which I guess is understandable given the significant graphical upgrade we're seeing. However, the fact none can maintain 60 FPS in performance mode is a key failing. Let's look at the frame rate results on all consoles and graphics modes. When stationary, the Xbox Series X generates a stable 30 FPS in quality mode and 60 FPS in performance mode, both indoors and outdoors. The Series S likewise generates a stable 30 FPS indoors and outdoors. PlayStation 5 also gives us a stable 30 FPS in quality mode and 60 FPS in performance mode, both inside and outside. And finally, PlayStation 5 Pro is the same, with no frame rate dips in either mode, indoors or outdoors. But this initial stability is deceptive. Performance significantly degrades during terrain traversal. My terrain traversal test was a 2-minute horseback ride around Lake Remir, which surrounds the Imperial City. I started at the alien ruin here called Vin Diesel for some reason. Sorry, Vin Diesel. Then I ride north to Way. Oblivion Remastered exhibits severe frame rate drops on all consoles in both graphic modes during this test. On Series X in performance mode, FPS dropped to 38 from 60, and quality mode it dropped down to 24 from 30. On the Series S, FPS went down to 22 from its targeted 30. Game performance on the PlayStation 5 was no different, with FPS down to 34 from 60 in performance mode, which was the lowest performance mode result. On PlayStation 5 in quality mode, FPS dropped down to 23. The PS5 Pro in performance mode showed drops to 42 FPS. And in quality mode, the PlayStation 5 Pro showed drops down to 24. These dips are noticeable and frequent, especially in performance modes, and they significantly detract from gameplay. The chart here shows FPS changes over the 2-minute ride around the lake, highlighting the instability, many small dips, and the larger drops in FPS at predictable points. These larger drops are too severe for any variable refresh rate system to fully smooth out. You might have noticed performance takes a big hit whenever I ride past Fort Virtue. This isn't new. The same location caused performance drops on the original Oblivion when I tested that in a previous video. But why there? Well, as you know by now, the game is called a remaster and not a remake because it still uses some of the game's original code. One of the old things it's kept is how the game world is built. It's divided into invisible sections called cells. This excellent map from the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages shows this nicely. When you move from one cell to another, the game has to quickly load information about game assets from the new cell, like trees and buildings and enemies. In the original game, you'd sometimes see a loading area message on screen. In both the original game and the remaster, those big drops in frame rate are happening as we cross the border from one cell to the next, because the console is working hard to load all these new assets. If you look at that map of these cells, you can see that Fort Virtue is located right on the boundary line where two of these large cells meet. So, even though this remaster has made many things better, This old problem of performance dropping when the game loads a new area is still there. It's really noticeable during normal gameplay, and it really should be fixed. I have noticed frame rate drops in other locations as well, including this combat in a cave. So it's not just terrain traverse, though that is the most noticeable. Number 8. Improved draw distance. Many of you in the comments section of my wishlist video said draw distance and pop-in were key areas to be improved with the remaster. Yeah, I agree. Draw distance is notoriously close in with the original game. Just moving forward in game resulted in objects being drawn right in front of you, and I found this distracting. This happened in the original game on the 360, but also the enhanced edition on the series consoles. But with the remaster, landscape geometry pop-in is non-existent thanks to Unreal Engine 5's use of the Nanite geometry tool. Nanite now renders Cyrodiil's terrain in real time, completely eliminating the need for those level of detail, those LOD meshes we're used to seeing in many Bethesda games. Shadow, object and foliage pop-in is also rare now. I only really noticed it on the Series S, and even then it was not as bad as in original Oblivion. Most of the time when playing though, I don't see any pop-in at all. So I'm going to put this down as wish granted. Nice. Number 9. Improved lighting. In my previous wishlist video, I said the following. A very optimistic person would wish for technologies like Nanite and Lumen to be used, ray tracing for realistic lighting and reflections. Honestly, it looks like that optimism was justified. Bethesda and Virtuous really knocked it out of the park with the lighting system in this remaster. I've just talked about Nanite, but let's talk about lighting. The lighting in this game is outstanding. Unreal Engine 5's Lumen lighting tool is used to provide global illumination and reflections. Lumen handles global illumination beautifully. It accurately calculates how light bounces off different types of surface, which is just amazing. It's kind of crazy to think about. Lumen also models all the changes to lighting in a room if a light source moves or if something blocks light to cast a shadow. Lumen also generates realistic water reflections, as we can see here. Take a look at this pond, for example. You might have noticed a screen space reflections toggle in the graphics menu. With this setting on, the game will mirror items in the water that have been drawn on the screen. What's being reflected off the water is limited by what's currently being drawn on the rest of the screen. So if you turn away or you look down, the reflection can change quickly. It doesn't look so realistic. I've left SSR on for the frame rate test as it's on by default in game, but it doesn't really seem to impact FPS performance. Personally, I turn it off when playing because those little changes are a bit distracting. The other change brought by Lumen is the impact of actual placed light sources within the game world. Many locations now have extra torches and campfires, glowing gems, lava maybe, and holes in the ceiling just to let the sunlight in. Having said that, you can still see around you at times in caves and ruins, even when there is no light source nearby. So there does seem to be some passive lighting.
I'll bash you good!
I really like the added realism this new lighting system brings. It can produce some stunning environments. However, I wonder if retroactively adding these light sources to an already existing game world came with some challenges, as some areas do now seem very dark to me. For example, I just can't imagine you'd want your general store to be so dark that customers can hardly see what items are for sale. Using this drop torches trick to help out our friendly merchant here, I dropped a torch from my menu in the middle of the floor. If I leave the area, wait 24 hours, and come back, the torch will be lit and I can see what he has for sale. It seems Virtuous were aware of how dark the game can be. You'll notice when you're talking to an NPC, they have this almost Rembrandt-style spotlighting effect on their face. That light isn't actually coming from anywhere in the room, it's added so the NPC's face is not in shadow when you're talking to them. And that makes sense, but perhaps it would be better just to have a better lit room. Look, overall, as far as lighting in Oblivion Remastered goes, this wish has very much been granted, and then some. Number 10, a faithful remaster. In my wishlist video, I said this: there's a risk that a remake could lose some of Oblivion's original charm. It's a delicate balance, a remake that is familiar but feels fresh, a faithful yet modernized version of Oblivion. That would be awesome. So this wish has been granted because the original game engine is sitting at the heart of this remastered version and controls physics. The game feels the same, and I think that was kind of genius on the part of Bethesda and Virtuous to do it that way. So what we do have is a game, exactly as I was hoping, that has the same feel that the original had, but it looks modern. And boy, does it look modern. Very clever. So I'll say this one more time. Oblivion Remastered looks great and plays just like I remember. Wish granted. So how do we do? 3 of my 10 graphics wishes seem to have been not granted. There is no 120Hz mode, the game doesn't have high dynamic range, and it doesn't always run at 60 frames a second. Hopefully we'll see improvements and introduction of some of those features in the future. So it really is a modern 2025 remaster of a 2006 game. What else was on my wish list? So if you saw my wish list video, you'll know it covered more than just graphics, but the visual improvements were definitely at the top of that list, so that's why we focused on those today. So make sure to subscribe for future videos where we'll see if my other remaster wishes were granted. So I'll likely do at least one more video like this, looking at some of those other wishes. Alright, that's a lot of discussion of Oblivion Remastered. Thanks for making it this far. I really appreciate you watching. Alright, all good. Ramnix is out.